really wonder often, where is the focus on developing tourism in the country? Because when I look at statistics from other countries, especially ones in Asia Pacific, what I find is that even the tiniest of countries, say a Hong Kong, take a Macau, take a Malaysia, which are all much smaller in size as compared to our country, they receive many more tourists. I'll quote specific figures wherein you'll find that India in fact receives less than 5 million, and these are statistics from last year 2010. Of course, compared to China, we are practically nowhere, because China, of course, has a very good ranking. Even at a global level, it's number three in terms of tourist arrivals. So in 2010, it received more than 55 million tourists, and that was ranked number three, with France at number one with more than 76 million tourists, and the United States at number two with almost 60 million tourists. But even if I confine myself to the Asia Pacific region, what I find is that, of course, China is right at the top with 55 million, and you have Australia at the bottom among the top 10 with about 5, close to 6 million tourists. In India, we are still around the 5 million mark, but then it's something which really, I find very astonishing, because when I look at tourism, I see it as an opportunity for the country to promote itself, for the country to highlight its development. There are so many different ways in which India can really come up in a much bigger, better way through tourism. First of all, in terms of revenues, if I take 5 million as the current tourist arrival figure, and even if we can try and at least double it, I don't think we can come anywhere close to China in the near future. But even if we can try and bring it to levels which are closer to what are seen in Singapore. Imagine Singapore is like a tiny little speck on the map, and that it receives close to 10 million tourists. Now, even if we can get to the levels which are seen in Singapore, and if we take a very small amount coming in from each tourist, say let's take 1,000 US dollars, which is 50,000 Indian rupees at the moment. Imagine the quantum of money which will come in if you multiply 50,000 rupees by 5 million more tourists. And per tourist, if I take an average expenditure which the tourist incurs within India of 50,000, which I think is very nominal, because many of us Indians, even when we travel within the country or abroad, we do end up spending that much, especially say like a lot of Indians recently are going to places like Thailand, and even when they go for say a weekend and a 2 to 3 day trip, they do end up spending that much. So I mean, imagine the amount of money that we are talking about, plus the fact that each tourist, when he or she comes and has a good experience, goes back and talks about the country in such a big way, wherein a good experience will always ensure that there are many more tourists coming in from that same country. And so these are things which we don't seem to be doing, like specific to hotels. What I typically find is that either there are the high end hotels which are quite expensive, even if I compare them with any international or global chains, and right at the other extreme there are really low end, low cost hotels which are they're also very low on quality. So I think what we need is more of the mid range budget hotels. They're coming up, but then I think they are relatively short, and at the same time they're less in supply, because the tourist arrivals are themselves somewhat low. And more than that, I feel tourist infrastructure in India is very lacking, very lacking. We have so many things, but we don't seem to focus on that. We have so much of, I think, if you look at the culture, the history, and the heritage of India, we we are probably almost unparalleled in the world. We have so much of history, we have so much of culture, so many things which tourists would enjoy visiting and enjoy experiencing here. But we don't create a certain an all round ambience which is comfortable from start to finish. For one, I feel that if you take Europe as a continent, there are a lot of, each country speaks a different language. We in India tend to generalize that any white skin speaks English, but that's not really the case. So therefore, if we can market ourselves in such a way that we specifically promote ourselves in respective countries in a certain manner, and then ensure that even when they arrive here, they have ample ambience and a certain comfort zone, where say a group of German tourists are coming, or a group of French tourists are coming, they have an entire ecosystem which is comfortable to their state of existence. They get to have their food, they get to speak in their language, you have guides who speak their language. These things will probably ensure that more tourists. Similarly, if I look at Japan, Japanese tourists, they're phenomenal when it comes to traveling. They love to travel. They're very well aware of different places. Many of them do come, but then there's a huge potential for many more Japanese tourists to come to India. Again, if we can have Japanese language signs, if we can have food which is comfortable and familiar, and what they like, if we can ensure that, that's one way. Then certain basic things like there's always a lack of toilets, there's always a lack of cleanliness on the streets. Historical places are always such that there's some sort of hooliganism there on those historical buildings, which is a sham, which is really very sad. Why are people disfiguring these monuments? Why do we even allow it? People say that it's difficult to police, but I think it is possible. Again, have education, create a certain civic sense in people. If you can do that, then it's possible that people will not do it. Another thing which I find particularly very disturbing in India is encroachment of historical buildings, which is really very sad. The Indian government has to work towards a mechanism wherein certain public structures which have say heritage value, which have say historical value, which have say tourist value, they should be kept free of all kinds of encroachments, and to the maximum extent possible there should always be an endeavor to make the entire experience of visiting these places as comfortable as possible. Make so many different experiences. Why have say a historical monument and own just that and nothing else? Why not have certain experiences around it? You can, if there's the Qutub Minar in Delhi, you can have say a history of Delhi being played around there. You can have skits, you can have so many different food items being there. Unfortunately, what I see is that there are these small time sellers outside, and for them an international tourist is like an ATM. They're only looking to how best to grab as much money from them. They'll charge for the same items, they'll probably charge 5 times or 10 times as much money. So these things, a tourist has to be given a positive experience, so that he or she keeps coming back, as well as goes back and recommends the country to maybe 10, 20, 100 more people, so that they in turn can come. I think there are so many regarding tourism. I think that I have so many different thoughts, but that'll require many more videos. But my broad feeling is that our ecosystem, the way it is in the country at the moment, is extremely tourist unfriendly. Probably the worst which I have seen across so many other countries which I have had the pleasure of visiting. So till we do that, it'll probably take a lot of time, it'll probably take a lot of thought, and I feel if the private sector is given a bigger hand in terms of controlling many aspects of tourism. Look at F1. I mean, amazing. Hats off to the developers, to JP and Kingfisher and Sahara and all those who pitched in and made F1 happen in India. private sector is one thing, and sometimes I really feel that go beyond just history and culture. There's so many different modern experiences which you can also give to tourists, which they will also enjoy. You can blend in certain ethnic aspects of India and certain modern systems and ecosystems of India to together create an ambience which is extremely enticing. Unfortunately, that is something which we don't seem to be doing, and it'll probably take a lot of effort before we actually get on to doing that. But I really hope, I sincerely hope that it happens, and it happens really soon. We're losing out on very precious foreign exchange, which we probably desperately need at the current scenario, where the rupee continues to depreciate with each passing day. Plus, the kind of reputation that which our country will get, the kind of mileage which our country will get, the kind of the respect that India will gain in front of people from other countries will be phenomenal, because there are a lot of people who are excited by things about India which they see. Especially what I've noticed the most, one is Bollywood, Hindi films or Indian films, which more and more people are viewing, more and more people are listening to the songs. Somehow they are hearing from their friends, and they always get this larger than life picture. But unfortunately, what happens is when they come to India, they see a real India which is very, very different and much, much worse than what they see in Bollywood. So that's like a big crash for them in terms of the opinion, the view. And otherwise, if you see, India has been being talked about so much as an economic powerhouse, emerging economic powerhouse. But then we are seeing very less of it on the streets. On the streets you see more of garbage, you see more of filth, you see more of dust, you see more of poor people, you see extreme traffic, you see a lot of chaos, cows. So all of these things, the negatives are what you see more than the positives. So I think we need to focus on that. We really need to think about, there should be a proper committee, there should be a lot of members pitching in, and then trying to develop tourism at the grassroots level on a much higher pedestal. There are many things which can be done. I feel entertainment avenues are practically lacking in this country. I'll talk about that in another video, where I feel things like casinos should be there across the country, especially in bigger cities like Delhi and Bombay. They should be there, but they're not really there. Why have casinos confined only to a Goa and a Sikkim? They should be there in other parts of the country as well. Similarly, there should be entertainment districts, there should be night bazaars, there should be more and more discos beyond just the 5 stars. You should have pubs and bars and discos where people can practically walk in. This whole concept of only couples entry, I have seen more of it only in India. There are other places that there's a concept like a singles bar where you can go comfortably, you can meet people from the opposite sex there, you can actually interact with one another. All that is missing. So there are so many things due to which I feel tourism in India gets lacking. I have picked on some of them, but I'll pick on more of them in my other videos. Thank you.